Welcome back, everyone, to the Wedge 52 Gridiron Podcast. I'm your host, Wedge. Today's episode will be the 10-minute report Broncos. Before we jump into today's episode, please make sure you guys follow me here on Spotify, as well as Instagram at Wedge52Gridiron. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the 10-minute report series, is where I'm picking a different team every single day of July and doing 20 minutes of study plus my already established knowledge to create a 10-minute podcast on the team. Now let's jump into today's 10-minute report on the Denver Broncos. To start things off, the Denver Broncos, as well as quarterback Russell Wilson, are looking for a big-time turnaround season. Last year, after the big trade between Denver and Seattle, expectations and hopes were high for the Denver Broncos and for Russell Wilson to potentially pose a threat in the AFC West to the Chargers and the Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs are, ahead of that division, have been for a few years. Most likely, my prediction is they will be again this year, but the Broncos were hoping to at least contend with the Chargers for one of those wild card positions. They had quite a disappointing season, as well as Russell Wilson personally did not put up numbers close to what fans were hoping for, and to be honest, numbers that did not correlate last season with his previous success that he had in Seattle. And, we all know he was had quite a few years there. Was where he was a top 10 quarterback in the league. To hopefully help turn around the Denver Broncos and the Russell Wilson play from last season, the Denver Broncos brought in Sean Payton as a head coach. Sean Payton previously coached for the New Orleans Saints. Many think of him as one of the better coaches in NFL history, at least since the 2000s, the past, 25 years since the turn of the 2000 mark. Sean Payton, all time in the regular season, is 152-89. That gives him a 631 win percentage, as well as 9-8 in the playoffs, which is a 529 win percentage. Sean Payton also has one Super Bowl victory with the New Orleans Saints. That, of course, came in the super cool storyline Super Bowl for the Saints right after Hurricane Katrina hit. That was a very special moment for the New Orleans Saints fans and that whole city, and really just, a good story to come out of the NFL. The Denver Broncos last year, their offensive line had quite a few struggles. One of their main struggles, honestly, was just the health of their offensive line. No offensive lineman started every single game in last season. And I believe that's the first, I've seen some stat. It was the first time that's happened for Broncos offensive linemen since 1987 or something like that. So obviously, I've talked about it before in other episodes, but consistency really goes a long way in determining, or I guess, indicating a offensive line groups, offensive line group, and, kind of their productivity and production and how well they're working together. Obviously, there's at least 5 of them on the field at the same time. They all have to work in cohesion. You can't have 1 or 2 guys not doing the correct thing, or the play's going to break down. And just playing alongside the same guys is building chemistry, not only for linemen and the linemen to the left or right of them, in terms of understanding, kind of their pace of play on blocks, as well as, their IQ and vision in, combos or pass rush switch-offs, things like that. But it also helps the running back and the rushing game kind of analyze and be able to, also understand that different linemen are going to be blocking different ways. You kind of, running back can learn to cut off of them differently based on, they can see, okay, this guy's hands here, head placement here. They kind of get an idea of what's going to happen in front of them before it happens per se. But it also helps out the quarterback, in just terms of confidence and knowing that he's able to stand in the pocket and do what he's going to need to do. So the Denver Broncos this offseason, they picked up 2 major O-line contributions that should help them out quite a bit this season. First, they signed tackle Mike McGlinchey from the San Francisco 49ers, who he was pretty solid. I want to say PFF ranked him 6 overall for tackles, I believe, in terms of productivity, as well as they signed guard Ben Powers, who was previously with my Baltimore Ravens. Over the past 2 seasons, Mike McGlinchey has allowed 8 sacks and has had 14 penalties. Not bad. Average of 4 sacks a year. That is, serviceable, definitely. As well as Ben Powers, the last 2 years, has only allowed 3.5 sacks and only 3 penalties. So, obviously, guard Ben Powers has been really good for the Ravens the past 2 years, been a big part of their offensive line. And then now he is with the Denver Broncos. So those 2 guys should definitely help out their offensive line in terms of, building them up. Hopefully those 2 guys can stay consistent in terms of health and, continue on the career pace and career track, I guess, that they've kind of been on the last few seasons. That would help out the backfield, which is going to need some help this season, at least for the beginning portion of that, because running back Javonte Williams is recovering from a multi-ligament knee injury where he tore his ACL, PCL, and LCL last season. And he is projected to be healthy, I would say, sometime in the early to mid-season. I would say most likely I would put a rough estimate based on when his injury happened around week 4 or 5 to start coming in. But to really hit his stride going full speed and having confidence and not, second-guessing himself or second-guessing certain defenders, coming at him from, particular angles, I would say it'll take him till about mid-season to see him return to form like we have seen. Like his rookie year, he put up 903 yards and 4 touchdowns. And then last year, he only played 4 games because of the knee. The Denver Broncos also signed Samaje Perine to a 2-year deal to help fill the space behind Williams. But in his 7 seasons, he only has 1,600 yards and 7 touchdowns. The Broncos also have a couple other running backs on the roster, none of which I think are going to be enough to pose as a threat coming from the running back position. However, the Broncos have $10 million in cap space, which means I think Dalvin Cook is probably out of their budget. But there's also other options like Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, and Leonard Fournette. Their wide receivers, although there was some trade speculation beginning of the offseason and around the draft, they did not end up trading a receiver, and they still have Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and then they drafted a rookie wide receiver out of Oklahoma, I believe Denzel Mims. So last year, kind of their biggest weakness was going to be pressuring the quarterback. They were ranked 6th last in quarterback pressures last season. They're hoping for a Randy Gregory comeback. He obviously had a very injury-riddled season last year, but they're hoping that he will be healthy by the beginning of the season after recovering from the knee injury. and having a arthroscopic, I believe, shoulder surgery in March. And then they also signed defensive end Zachary Allen from Arizona in this offseason. Their secondary, however, is, I would say, probably a couple little question marks, but I would say if consistent and if they continue to improve, a top 10 secondary unit, led by, of course, Patrick Surtain II, who last year had 10 passes defensed, 60 tackles, and 2 interceptions. And all of those numbers totaled up to give Patrick Surtain II first team All-Pro honors in 2022. So that wraps it up for our 10 minutes, which leaves me just with one thing: the 2023 Denver Broncos record prediction. I predict that the Broncos will go 7-10 this season. That's all I have on the 10-minute report for the Denver Broncos. Again, please make sure you guys check out the other episodes. I will be dropping every single day of July. And follow me here on Spotify at Wedge52Gridiron and Instagram. Thank you again for listening, and go Ravens.